Hey everyone, Ralph here. In today's video, I'm going to show you how we can generate product descriptions and product image alt text using just one image and a product title. We're going to be using two different types of AI to do that, one image recognition AI and then GPT 3.5. And the way that the finalized app that is going to take us just 35 minutes to build is going to work is that we have this UI that allows merchants to select if they want to generate image alt texts and or product descriptions. And then whenever they create a product or add a product image, we're going to be generating this information for them. So let's go ahead and add an Allure helmet product here. We'll add a product image. And then we're going to hit save once that is uploaded. And our app takes this image, it sends it off to an image recognition AI that gets information back and says that this is a black helmet. Then we're using that together with the product title, send that to GPT 3.5, and that generates both the product description and an imaged alt text. So if we go ahead and refresh this now, we can see that the product description appeared. And if we click on the product here, we can see that we also have an alt text. Now, depending on what you configure here, the output will be different. But in the next 35 minutes, I'll show you exactly how we built this entire app so you can use it yourself. Let's get into it. All right, so to build this app, we're going to be using Gadget. And if you're not familiar with Gadget, it is the easiest and fastest way to build Shopify apps. It is a fully hosted, full stack app development platform. You can find more information at gadget.dev and sign up for a free account. And what's neat about Gadget is that you can create Shopify apps really quickly. And what's even better is if you want to build public apps, the app template that you get out of the box is ready to clear all of the technical requirements of the Shopify App Store review. All you have to do is to create your backend logic and your UI, and it's ready to be shipped to the App Store. So I'll be showing you some information about Gadget. We'll be touching on a few of the capabilities, but you can do a lot more with the platform than what we're walking through today. You can go to gadget.dev to sign up for a free account. I work at Gadget, so I naturally already have an account. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit log in. Oops. And I'm then going to go ahead and click create a new app here. And this should be the screen that you end up seeing once you've created a new account if you're new to Gadget. And what you're asked here to do is to name your app. So let's call this AI image app. Let's call it AI product images. I don't know. You can come up with a better name. Obviously, I'm struggling. You can rename it at any given point in the future, so don't worry too much about what the name is. And what you're shown here is the Gadget UI. It's the editor. We'll walk through a bunch of these things in this tutorial. We also have documentation, but what's worth noting is that you have this URL that is unique to your app. It's live on the internet. You're not running it on your local host. This is a fully productionized app that is spun up in Google Cloud for you, that is ready to serve whatever purpose you have. We're going to be using it to build a Shopify app naturally. So here I'm going to go ahead and click on connect to Shopify. I'm going to use this partner dashboard flow, which is the recommended one, especially if you need an embedded UI in your admin or you want to build a public Shopify app. This is a must. You can't use this other flow. It's Shopify limitations. Then Gadget is asking us for a Shopify client ID and a client secret. So to get that, we have to go over to our Shopify partners dashboard. If you haven't used or haven't signed up for a Shopify partners account, it's free to do so. Just go to shopify.com/partners and join now. I have one because I've built apps before. So I'm just going to log in, and once you're in here, I'm going to go ahead and click apps. And then here I'm going to go ahead and create an app manually and then call that AI image magic. You can name it whatever you want, but that's what came to mind for me. And now you can see here we have client ID and client secret. So let's go ahead and copy those and paste those into Gadget here. And then click connect. And what you see in here are all of the various Shopify API scopes that you can use in Gadget. And it can be a little bit overwhelming, but what you should think about really is what is it that you want your app to do? What Shopify capabilities in terms of reading or writing does it need? So we're going to be reading and writing product images and product descriptions. So I'm just going to go ahead and search for product. We can find product listings and products, and this latter one is what we want. We want read and write scopes, so I'm going to go ahead and click write. Then we get a list of various options here because the product scope is fairly big. There's a bunch of data in there that might not be relevant to you. In our case today, we don't need collections, we don't need selling plans, we don't need variants and options or events. We really only need the core product information and the product image information. So all of these other things, I could select them if I really wanted to, but I don't need the data. I don't want to pay for storage of that data. If I'm not going to use it, I don't need it. And if you're not sure, select whatever you know you need. You can edit a connection and easily add additional information later, so don't worry too much about it. And if you wanted to build a public app under other resources here, there's also information that, scopes that might be useful if you want to build building or other things. But for this tutorial, we don't need that, so I'm just going to hit confirm. And what we'll see here is that Gadget creates a couple of different data models in our local Postgres database that we have on our Gadget app. We'll have a look at those in a minute, but first let's go ahead and finish this setup flow. So we can see app URL and allowed redirection URL are two URLs that were provided here. We're going to copy these and paste them into Shopify's partner dashboard. So let's start with the app URL. And here we're going to select app setup in the left-hand menu. And here we can see that there are these app URL and allowed redirection URL. So we're just going to replace the example.com one with the app URL, and then we're going to copy the allowed redirection URL and paste that in here. Then I'm just going to go ahead and click save. And if you got a keen eye, you can see that these URLs that we're using says -- development. So Gadget comes with both a development environment and a production environment. So when you're building an app, you're going to build it in a production environment. And if you want to deploy it to production, if you're going to use it for production purposes, you can deploy it very easily to a production environment with just one click. And what's beautiful about that is that rather than developing something in your local environment, where that might be slightly different than your production environment, when you're creating a local host and deploying to the cloud, when you're using Gadget, these two environments are identical. So if something works in development, it's also going to work in production, so you don't have to worry about that. So with that, we have saved this. Let's go back to overview here. And now we're going to go ahead and install this app on a store. So you got test your app and a button called select store. I almost always open that in a new tab in case I need to come back and use this. And today we're going to go ahead and use our Catalina wine mixture store, and just going to hit install app. If you built Shopify apps in the past, you might say, what about OAuth? What about all of the other things that you need to set up to be able to install an app? Like I said previously, that all comes out of the box with Gadget. So we got this OAuth screen that we all know and love. Just going to go ahead and install app, and because Gadget has already set up all of the technical requirements for us to install this on a store, we don't have to do that. OAuth is figured out, the webhooks are configured, all of those things comes out of the box. So what you have here is an app that would pass the technical requirements of a Shopify App Store listing. The review team would probably ask, what is this app supposed to do? Because it needs to do something. It needs to have a UI. You need to have an app store listing that makes sense, etc. But like from a technical requirement, you've skipped all of the boilerplate to be able to ship an app to the App Store. And what you see here is your gadget app, or our gadget app here, that is hosting this file that we're seeing, which is the embedded app of our AI image magic here. And it says this page is powered by shoppage.jsx. So if we click that, we're actually going to be taken to our app and a file in the front end folder here, because that's what's being rendered in the store. And I'm going to be using the web editor. If you want, you can sync files from Gadget to your local machine, edit in whatever editor you prefer, and have a real-time syncing with Gadget so you can update things live. But I just want to show you here that we could go ahead and select this. I'm just going to add some random text. And because this is live on the internet, if we go ahead here, that didn't refresh correctly, but if we refresh here, you can see that it says add some random text here. So this is being updated live. Everything is live on the internet. So what we want to do now is that we want to change this app UI to display a UI that allows the merchants to configure the app that we're going to create. So we want them to allow to select whether or not they want to update product descriptions and image alt text. So let's go ahead and create that, and after that we'll create the backend logic that talks to our AIs or AI services and also writes information to Shopify. But let's start with the front end. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. And what we want to do is that we want to have two fields that allows us to select or store whether or not the merchant has said if they want to update either of these product descriptions or alt text whenever we upload an image to a product. So I'm going to store that on our shop model here. So again, Gadget has created all of these various models in our local database on our Gadget application. This shop model, you can see, has all of the various fields that are relevant for a shop that installs your app. We have already installed it on a store, so we actually already have a record in here. You can see all of these fields are is about the store that we installed it on, Catalina wine mixers, etc. It's a developer preview store, partner test, etc., etc. So what we're going to do, we're going to add or two fields to this model. We're just going to check on my cheat sheet here to make sure that I named them correctly, or we're going to have problems later. So you can mix, all of these are Shopify models. You got a couple of, Shopify fields. We got some Gadget fields. And then I'm going to add two more fields. So you can mix Shopify data and your own data. So I'm going to add a field and I'm going to call it generate alt text. We're going to change this to a Boolean. And then for good purpose or for good measures, we're going to set the default value to false to make sure that it is not set to true when a merchant installs it. Then we're going to add a second one and we're going to call generate product description. I'm going to also change this to Boolean and we're going to change it to false. So now we can store the data. Now we got to create the UI so we can store these Boolean flags for each individual store that installs this app. And you can see if we go to data here, it now says generate all text and generate product descriptions. These are set to null because we already had the record when we created these, but that will be fixed once we add the UI. We could backfill it, but we really don't need to do that. So now we want to add a page that is different than this. So like I said, this is powered by the shop page, and we're being routed here through the app.jsx page. So what I'm going to go ahead and do in my front end folder here, I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call it useimage.jsx, which probably isn't the best file name, but it's what I came up with when I built this app. You can always rename it if you want. And then I'm going to paste some code here, and you can find this code in the link in the video description. It has all of the code and all of the resources that you need so you can follow along. And what I'm doing is just importing some information from Polaris. I'm defining a couple of states and a couple of functions, and then I'm just rendering or returning this Polaris information that allows us to show some text and to have these checkboxes that reads and saves data to these fields that we just created. Now there is one problem here, and it is that the Shopify shop update here, we actually need to go in and make a change. So some of these Shopify, or all of the Shopify models in Gadget, has some restrictions that is set so you don't accidentally update or remove or change things that breaks the Shopify integration. You can do it, there's just some safeguards in place. So if we, as an example, look at the Shopify shop model, we have these actions that are just API actions that happens when someone installs your store. When someone installs your store, we're going to create a record, etc. That's what happened when we installed it. We have this record. We have uninstall and reinstall. You can add logic to those. And then you have update here. You can see these triggers are updated by Shopify webhooks and Shopify sync data. What we need to go and add here is a Gadget API call, which allows us to make an API call and update the shop model. If you don't add this, the UI won't have the access to update a record, because currently Gadget by default is programmed to only update Shopify data when Shopify says so, Shopify webhooks and Shopify sync data. So by adding this trigger here with the Gadget API, it will actually allow us to have this UI to write this data. And then worth pointing out as well is that in our settings folder here, we can go to roles and permissions, and you can see we have created, or Gadget creates, a Shopify app user out of the box, and that's the user or the role that is interfacing with this. And that user automatically have access to read, update, install, reinstall, and uninstall anything on the Shopify shop model. And then similarly on all other Shopify models, they have read and write access. If you ever want to change that, you can do that, but we sort of have the default that if someone is inside the admin, they probably already have access to all of this data. So when they're interfacing with your app, they should be able to update these things or access these things. Okay, but so now we fixed that. What we want to do next is we've created this use image. We now want to in-app essentially go ahead and add this here. So just going to copy this, whoops, and say use image from use image. And then we can go ahead and replace this shop page with use image, and then just call this update app configuration. This should work. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the app here. And then hit inspect in case we have an error. We don't. And sometimes when we're building in development, the embedded app can be a little bit slow. It happens from time to time, but worth knowing is when you're using the production environment, it's really snappy. So that's worth knowing. So now we just have this image settings, choose what you want the app to do. Generate image alt text, generate product descriptions. So we can go ahead and click this and click this. and we can go into our shop model here, go to data, and we can see that both of these are now set to true. And if I uncheck this, if we refresh this, you can see that this is now set to false. So this is wired up to our backend, and this configuration changes. I'm not sure why that flashes here. React is not the language that I'm best at, so but it works. If you want to make it better, you can do that. Cool. So now we have a UI that allows merchants to say what they want the app to do. Now let's actually create the logic that allows the app to do something. So to do that, we're going to flip back into Gadget, and then we're going to be using this Shopify product image model. So similarly to the shop model, you can see that there's a bunch of fields here that are related to the Shopify product images. And you have these create, update, and delete actions. And what that means is that whenever a Shopify image, or sorry, Shopify product image is created, Shopify is listening to the webhooks and creating a record in here in your local data model. Similarly, when something is updated or deleted, Gadget gets webhooks, process those, and make sure that your local database is always up to date. So the way that our app is going to work is that whenever a product image is added, we're going to get that webhook. We're going to look at the configuration that the merchants has said that they want the app to do and decide, okay, do we want to only create an image alt text? Do we want to create an image description, or both? Then we're going to go execute that and write that back to Shopify. And to do that, we're going to be creating our logic under the action here. So we're going to add a code snippet, and then we're going to fill in our code. Now, there's one thing that we need to do first, and it is, I'm just going to look at my cheat sheet here. So the Shopify REST API hasn't documented the alt text field, so it doesn't currently exist in Gadget. I'm not sure if it's a bug in Shopify's end, but because it's not documented in the API, it's not in Gadget. So we're going to go ahead and add a field here as well. I'm going to call that alt text. And that is just a string. It's where we're going to be storing our information. And then what we got to do next here as well is on the model, whenever a Shopify product image is created or updated, we want to make sure that we write something to this alt text, because all of these other fields are automatically updated when we get them from Shopify. We just got to teach Gadget that we need to store that information. It's just going to run a code snippet here. I'm going to move this up all the way to the top, and then we're going to just flip into this code file here, and then this one is let's actually let's make this a little bit more clearer, to be honest. So I'm going to remove this code file, and then we're going to call this, we're going to create a new file instead. Sorry for the confusion here. Save alttext.js. Let's make it clearer what the file actually does. So I'm going to create a code file that is called save alt text, and then in here we're going to be adding a trigger param, and that allows us to read the raw webhook that has this information. And then what we're going to do here is that we're going to say that the record.alt text, which is referring to this field right here, equals the trigger.payload.image.alt, which is just the path to where the where this information exists. So this is complaining that payload does not exist on trigger, which it should. Not sure why it's complaining about that. We'll see. It should be working. Let's check that in a minute. We can actually do it in a minute here. And then we want to do the same thing here, because whenever, say that we create an image and then add an alt text, we want to make sure that when product gets updated or images gets updated, that is updated as well. So what we can do here is just go ahead and use the same code file. And let's show you what that looks like in Shopify. Let's go to products. Let's add a product. Let's just call it a test product. I need to add a SKU to my products for whatever reason. And then let's add a file, and we'll use this helmet. And then we'll just hit save here. And let's go to gadget and see if we get this right here. So this is how gadget works. We just created this in Shopify. Magically, we have this record here because we got a webhook. Now let's go ahead. We're just going to check our logs here if we had an error. No, we didn't. And then let's go ahead and add an alt text here to make sure that this actually works. This is a test alt text. And Shopify saves that, and what I would expect here now is that we see this. This is a test, and if we click on this alt text. So that works. We wired up our webhook to store some additional information that is not documented in the Shopify API docs, but that actually exists in the webhook. So now we're storing that, which means that we can read it if we want to. Now, next, what we want to do is, so we just created an image. It appeared in gadget. What we want to do here is to, whenever something gets created, we want to go ahead and run some logic. So what I did here previously, we can redo it, is under success effects here, we want to say when something gets created, we want to add a code snippet. So when a product image gets created, I want to run some custom logic that generates this image description or image alt text and product description, depending on what the merchant has said that they want to do. So again, I'm going to be copy pasting some logic here. Again, this all exists in the resources that is linked in the video description. I'm going to walk through this quickly, and then we're going to test it. So we're going to be using OpenAI, and we're going to be using Microsoft's computer vision API that exists in Azure. I'm not going to go through how you sign up to those services and how to get the API keys that we're using. I'll link to the written tutorial companion doc that explains to you how to do that. But we're going to be installing this OpenAI package in a minute, and then we're just going to be grabbing some information from the shop record that we have on file, and we're grabbing this generate alt text and generate product description because we need that in our logic to figure out what is it that we want to do. We'll set up a configuration to connect to OpenAI, create some placeholders, and then here we're going to be setting up the configuration for the Microsoft Computer Vision API, adding some headers to it, and then we're just going to be calling that with an axis.post. And here, this will depend on what resource you sign up for in Microsoft. Again, I'm going to explain that in the companion doc that is linked in this video description. And we're going to get an image alt text back. What we get back from this image computer vision API is just what the AI thinks that is in the description. So we'll show in a minute what that looks like, but in this case, it's likely going to say a black helmet with straps. I know that because I've tested it. And then we're going to be essentially saying if we need to generate a product description, we're going to be calling out to GPT 3.5 using the create chat completion from OpenAI, passing in a prompt saying you're a helpful e-commerce assistant helping to write product description text for an e-commerce store, passing in this prompt. We'll get that back, and then we'll just log that to our logs. And then if we also want to generate an alt text, if the merchant has said, I want you to do that, we're similarly going to be calling out to the OpenAI GPT 3.5 again using the create chat completion. And now we're just going to say, you're a helpful e-commerce assistant helping to write alt text for product images to improve SEO, and provide a slightly different prompt. Once we've done all that, we're just going to be updating Shopify by writing with the Shopify API to Shopify and update the product description and the product image alt text depending on what the merchant has asked for. And this is very simple in Gadget. We're just going to be using this connections.shopify.current, which uses the current store that this is being run on. If you have many stores installed, it's going to be doing it for whichever store that had a product image created, so you don't have to keep track of tenancy, etc. And then we're just passing in the image information and the new text and the product description, just passing that in. And that's really all of the things that we need to do for this to work. So the remaining things that we got to do is that we have to update our package.json with the OpenAI npm package, and maybe OpenAI npm package, not just open. And then you can search for this. You go to npmjs.com, find this package, and then you can see that it's version 3.2.1. So we can add that here. OpenAI colon 3.2.1. And again, this information is also in the help docs that I'm providing, that is linked in the video description. So because Gadget is running node.js, we can import these packages and use them. So what's happening here is that we're just running yarn. And meanwhile, what I'm going to do is that we can go ahead and add these environment variables that we need to store the API keys that we're going to be using for Microsoft and for OpenAI. I'm just going to open up again my cheat sheet to make sure that I copy paste the right environment variables here. So you can go ahead and hit add variable, and then let's name this Azure API key. And this is where in the link that I provide in the video description, I'll explain how you can get your key. And then next one, we want to do OpenAI API key. And similarly, you go to OpenAI and sign up and find this key. And again, I'll explain in the link in the video description how you do this, and you find your key and you paste it here. And then I would suggest that you encrypt these values to store them safely. And these are used in the in this file. We call them here OpenAI API key and Azure API key. So make sure that you name them exactly the same. And our yarn is still running, which it shouldn't do. Let's refresh this and see if it's a UI bug. Not sure why that. So, okay, that was already up to date. So that was just a visual bug that had run. So I think that now we are ready to test this out. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go here. We can go ahead and remove this test product because we actually don't need it. And then let's test this AI image magic. What settings did we say that we wanted to use? Again, we're using the development environments. Sometimes it's a little bit slow. So generate image, alt text, and generate product descriptions. Let's go the full Monty. Let's go ahead and add a product. We'll call this, what is it called? Let's add the image first. It's called Allure Helmet. So let's call it Allure Helmet. We're just gonna go ahead and add a SKU because Shopify needs that on this store for whatever reason. So what I expect to happen now is that I'm uploaded this image, I've added this title, I'm gonna hit save, and now I expect my Shopify app on Gadget to generate a product description and then generate alt text as well. So because we're reaching out to a couple of APIs, that may take a few seconds. So I got this logger saying calling computer vision. The information that we get back from that is a black helmet with a black strap. And then we're calling out to GPT 3.5. We get this product description back. And then we're calling out to GPT 3.5 again with the product description and the image alt text to get the image alt text. So if we refresh this here, we can see that, yes, we have a product description. And what we have here is a black Allure helmet with matching strap for stylish and safe cycling. This is not a cycling helmet, but that's okay. I think that this is just for demo purposes. We can use it for cycling, but I think it is a skiing and snowboarding helmet. But that's neither here or there. Just to show you as an example what we can do if we actually go and find this Allure Smith helmet. Let's go ahead and actually copy paste the real product description just to show you how this works. Let's delete this file. Let's go back to our app setting here, AI image magic. Let's uncheck the product description and just see how it works when it is only generating an image alt text. Let's go back to the Allure helmet here, and let's go ahead and add a file. And as you can see, the alt text is empty. So we just let Gadget and the AI do its thing here. That should have come in by now, so I'm just going to go ahead and refresh. And here we see black Allure helmet with black strap, ultra and plush women's ski and snowboard helmet with MIPS and 9 fixed vents for safety and comfort. So obviously the alt text is better when you already have an existing description. Otherwise, the description and the alt text will be dependent on just what the computer vision and the product title gets you. So you can play around with what various results you get and what you want. Maybe you don't want product descriptions. Maybe you only want generate image alt text. Then you just keep this checked. And also you got pretty good capabilities to change. If you go to product image here, you have pretty good capabilities to change also the prompts, to tune the prompts to whatever makes sense to you. I've been using GPT-4. That has given me a lot of better results, but I wanted to use GPT 3.5 Turbo in this tutorial because I know not all of you have that. So you could change these prompts to better fit what sort of makes sense for you. Okay, that wasn't too hard, was it? So in about 35 minutes, we built a Shopify app that will use 2 different types of AI to identify what is in a product image, and then use GPT 3.5 to generate a product description and or an alt text. So I hope that this was inspirational for you. Maybe you have some ideas of some apps that you want to build. And if you use Gadget to do it, just as a reminder, your app will be ready to be shipped to the Shopify App Store. It will pass all of the technical requirements out of the box. What's left for you to do is to build the UI that the merchants will see and any backend logic that you need. And if you want to have some billing in place, we have tutorials for how to build that as well. But it's just showing how easy and fast it is to build Shopify apps with Gadget, no matter if it's public apps or custom apps that you only want to install on individual stores. If you have any ideas and you want any help, make sure to go to gadget.dev and join our developer Discord. We're happy to help you with any questions that you have. If you have ideas for other tutorials or you want me to show something, do comment on this video wherever you found it and let me know. I'm happy to record additional tutorials. And to make sure that you know when those tutorials are up, why not subscribe to this channel and also give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful. But I'll leave it at that. That's it for this video. I really appreciate you watching it, and I'll hopefully see you in a future video. Thanks and bye.